Hi everyone, and happy April 1st. Do you say happy April 1st? Do you say something like that? I don't know. But hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I can't believe today is already our 50th AMA, and looking back, I'm so excited by how many people, how many amazing founders we had the chance to speak with. I mean, that's amazing. And joining me today, we have Samantha Jackman from Boost Innovations. So before I let Samantha introduce herself, let me remind you a few things. The main thing is right now we are live on many platforms, and so the reason for that is for you to ask your own questions while we chat, right? So whatever platform you're using, if you're joining from YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, simply drop your question on the chat box or even say hi, just say hi, what you're working on or whatever. Please interact with us because that's why we are live, and I see we have already a few people on the chat, so nice to have you here. Also, a special thank you to everyone who have been supporting these AMAs, and especially Yinch and Roy, who are monthly supporters on my Buy Me a Coffee page. And yeah, I guess that's about it for me now. So Samantha, if you are ready, what about we get started with this AMA and you tell us a bit more about you and Boost?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Sam. I am the co-founder and CEO of Boost Innovations Limited, and Boost is a design and innovation firm. Mostly, we work with women who've had breast cancer. I'm just aware I'm just sat in the sunshine now. The sun's just moved.
That's okay, we can
So
see you well.
you can see me. So Boost came about because my mum had breast cancer. So around nearly 16 years ago, I think now, she had a single mastectomy, and she was given a product to provide some shape and contour under her clothing, a traditional breast prosthesis, and they look a bit like this.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of the assumption is that it's something fleshy and kind of beige, and it's almost like the assumption is to replace the flesh or the breast that has been lost with this kind of product. So my mum was given one of those, and she really disliked wearing it. She found it was hot and heavy, and it was really uncomfortable, and it kind of flopped about under her clothing, and it didn't give her it didn't really make her happy. It was uncomfortable, but it didn't look very nice either. So we spent a really long time, my mum and I, going to different shops and looking at different types of products. And I went on the internet and I ordered so many different things. And there really wasn't anything that really met her needs that she was kind of looking for. And so in the end, I teamed up with a lady that I used to work with. We were colleagues, and we decided to have a go at doing something ourselves. And we did a bit of research, and we found out that lots of women felt the same way that my mum did. And we co-founded Boost together. And I've been running the company then since sort of 2019 on my own, and kind of building it up slowly and with some help from a team behind me of subcontractors and engineers, and we've just started to get to a stage where we can employ our first people. So it's all getting very exciting now.
Amazing. I am super excited for you. So, you showed us the prosthetic. Can you also show us your own product? I want to see
This
that.
is ours. So this is a Boost breast form, and it's soft and squidgy. It's made from medical grade silicone. It is skin safe. It can go in the swimming pool. It's easy to clean and to wash and to sterilize. And it's actually just it's so much lighter. It's airy. Air can circulate through it, and it doesn't flop away from the body. So when you're moving, if you're jogging or you're running or you're swimming, it doesn't have that kind of motion where it comes away from the body. It's very much where it's put, it kind of stays. So it's just it's a different type of shaper product. It isn't it's not there to completely replace everything. It's just another tool that's filling a gap, particularly in the kind of active wear kind of space. It was really difficult for women to find something that met their needs.
So, is it only for women who have had a mastectomy, or can it be used also for other kind of situation? And also, you mentioned some problem with the prosthetic that you showed us. Is there any other option? What options are out there when you're a woman in this situation?
So, to answer your first question, yes, it can be used for other situations too. We do have some people who are trans who wear our products to give them some shape and contour under their clothing. We've also had some customers who have breast asymmetry for different reasons. So they might have a slightly different type of medical condition. They might have had some, there's something called Poland syndrome, which causes some chest deformity. There's different reasons why you would want to create that silhouette. And really, that's fine. We're just happy to empower people to create the shape under their clothing that feels comfortable and makes them feel good. And that's fine. That's fine with us. We don't mind that. It's brilliant. We love to hear people's stories where they're wearing our product, or if they want to have a slightly customized product, we also offer that too. So we can help for different stages of surgery and different options and different situations. And as for like the other options, a lot of women, well, it's really difficult. So there is the options, obviously, to have a reconstruction. So you can have your breast reconstructed with a silicone implant that goes under your skin. The results of that can be not always what women expect them to be, and there's a bit more of a trend towards explanting, where the implant is taken out again because of complications or people just not really happy with how it looks, and actually embracing the fact that they probably won't have the kind of symmetry that they thought that they wanted, but actually would rather live their life in comfort or in a slightly different way. And there are women that make a choice, like my mum did. She wasn't really going to have a reconstruction, and she was just okay with just having the one breast. In fact, actually, she did at one point ask if they could remove both of them, but it wasn't viable at the time, and hasn't happened. But for some women, that's another choice. So actually having both breasts removed at the same time to give you that freedom and that symmetry, whether you have reconstruction or not have reconstruction. So there's all sorts of different options, and really there's a lot more choice now, I think, for women to have those conversations. But in terms of the products that are available, the prostheses type products, they are mostly following this kind of format, and this has largely been unchanged since the 1960s. This is how they started to wear them, the silicone gel and the polyurethane film. So yeah, that's what we were trying to address.
I see. We have a question on the chat from Roy. That is quite interesting. Are these 3D printed?
No.
Okay. So can you tell us a bit more about how you produce them? Because we don't have quite often the opportunity to have someone that build a physical product on the stream. So I'm also curious about that.
So we make our products as well here in Cornwall, and we do that. We chose to do that in a small batch manufacturing process so that we could manage our production waste, because it was really important for us. We knew we were going to have to use silicone, and silicone isn't the most environmentally friendly product in the world, as you all know. So it was important for us to kind of minimize the impact. We didn't want to bring more stuff into the world unnecessarily. So we make in small batches so that we know that what we make we can sell. We don't hold on to lots of stock, and we're not wasting energy or materials by overproduction that you then have to reduce to sell. We make what we need to. We also manage our production waste process, and it is a moulding process at the moment. However, we are really excited to be exploring things with 3D printing, and we have worked with 3D printers before on different projects. We worked with Carbon 3D, who are in the US. We did that about 3 years ago. Worked on some projects with them. But yeah, it's at the moment the best way to do it, and the most cost-effective way to do it is that we've found so far is to do it the way we are with the small batch molding.
I'm wondering, so you presented it, and you presented the medical options and the medical aspect, but I guess the way you present it, and also I noticed that on your LinkedIn, you have a pop-up shop coming next week. That's not the kind of thing we expect from a medical device. So I guess you're trying to shift the idea of using this not as a medical device. How do you do that? How do you, go away from this perception of a medical device?
It was really important that we were listening to what women were saying, and women were saying, we don't want to be forever having to be associated with the medical thing, with the cancer that happened, like my mum, it's 16 years since she had her cancer treatment, and she doesn't have cancer anymore. But if she broke her breast form for any reason, and they are quite delicate, they split and they leak and they're quite gooey, and there's not a lot you can't recycle them, they just have to be thrown away. She would have to get a referral to her breast cancer clinic, and she'd have to go and sit there in the clinic to get her other NHS prosthesis. And it's just that whole medical process. It's like the continuing medicalization and disempowerment of women who are choosing to live healthy and active lifestyles. They're doing really well. They might not have cancer anymore, or they might still have some medical conditions, but actually that doesn't rule their lives. They are women, or they are people, regardless of what the treatment packages are. And actually, when we had advice from the MHRA about our product, they did say that it wasn't entirely necessary to classify it as a medical device, and it could be an accessory or a shaper product. And because a prosthesis by definition is a replacement body part, and we never really thought that it was a replacement body part, we thought it was a choice, a choice to wear a thing to provide you with the shape. And actually, if you chose not to wear the thing and you were just flat, then we should all be fine with that, because that's still your choice as a woman to decide and take ownership of your body. Because cancer is like the most disempowering, any cancer treatment is just like the most disempowering thing that people can go through, because everything is almost done to you. You have very limited options for what your treatment plans will be. You have very limited choices in what's available to you. So I think it was really important for us to reframe that and to say, hey, look, if you're doing yoga, why don't you choose to have a sparkly purple boob for your yoga outfit? Like we can provide that kind of choice and empowerment. But the best thing that we had, one of the most amazing times when we knew we'd shifted that paradigm, was when we had a phone call from a gentleman who wanted to buy one as a Christmas present for his fiance. Now, giving them as a gift, it was in our first ever business plans, like years ago. That's we wrote that down as a milestone. We know we're winning, we're changing the story when someone buys it as a gift for someone else, because it's not an appropriate gift. It's kind of like you said, it's amazing. If you gave that to your other half, even though these cost about 180 quid and they're quite expensive, but if you gave that to somebody as a gift, they'd go, oh, But these, we've had people buy them for their best friends. We've had people, a man bought one for his fiance. They are really, it's appropriate. It's like people agreed with us that this would be appropriate and desirable and well received as a gift, and that was just mind-blowing. And when we got to that point, we knew we're like, this is it, it's going to be amazing, it's going to be fabulous.
I love that. When you have validation from the market, it's so amazing.
Yeah.
We have some pretty interesting question on the chat. So question from Yinch, which was the biggest challenge to bringing the design to market?
Oh, bringing it to market, really, getting the design all together and getting that kind of working out, that actually went quite smoothly. So we used a subcontracted designer, and he's really brilliant, and he's still with us, and it was just a fabulous relationship. It just worked out really, really well. But actually, I think the biggest hurdles was probably doing all the intellectual property protection. It took ages, a really long time, and it was really expensive. And of course, you're in limbo while that's all happening, because you can't really release the product to people. You don't want to run before you can walk. You don't want to show your hand almost that you know you're onto something amazing and it's patentable. But if you haven't got enough money to push forward with patents, then you're kind of sat on it and hiding it for a little bit of time. So to get to a point where we could afford to get the ball rolling on the patents and getting everything done, and it does have a UK patent. It's patent pending in the US, which I think is nearly at the end of the pending period. So we're about to hear how that goes, and we've got the EU one as well. So we were really focused on getting all of those things in place before we talked about it, before we really pushed it out there. So I think that was the biggest delay in reaching the market for us, was just waiting to firm up all the IP, because it takes so long and it takes so much money.
And you can't do anything. I mean, you can't do anything to speed up the process. As a founder, it's extremely frustrating.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, because you're used to kind of do things when you need to get things done. You know, you need something, you just do it, and you work hard, and in the end you get it. With this kind of things, you start the process. You have to wait. You can't do anything to speed up things. Frustrating.
No. It was frustrating. Sorry, go on.
We have a question from Roy. Given your product solves a problem that many women have for decades, why do you think the market hasn't provided or responded to this need earlier? And that's a big question.
I can only speculate. So I think that there are a few things that have gone on historically. One of them is that women who have had breast cancer are really tough, and they're really resilient, and they're really cool at just getting on with their lives. And after they've been through a really big thing, a lot of the women that we spoke to were just like, we just make do. We know it doesn't work for me, but I'm really happy that we have the NHS, that I've been treated, that I'm alive. And so, yeah, it's uncomfortable. And yes, I don't like it. But actually, in the grand scheme of things, I'm not going to make a fuss about it. I'm not going to really tell anybody that, because I'm happy that I've been given something, and I'm happy that I'm here, and I'm fine to make do. We found lots of women that had made their own products, and that's quite common. They made little cushion things of their own to just cushion between their clothing and their scar tissue if their scar was sore. We heard from women who were doing all sorts of different things to try and make themselves more comfortable. And we just thought, wow, these women are so resilient, but where were their voices? Where is the people that can listen and act on what they say? And part of the reason is, most of these types of products are produced, these ones are in Germany. I think there's some in Ireland that get produced, and they get produced in America. But they're really big corporations. They've been around for years and years and years, and they're not the sort of places you can just ring up and say, hey, I've got this problem. And one of the things we wanted to do was embed co-design really fully within our processes. And we still do that. If women ring us and say, I really need a thing that does that, then we will try and make it, because we have those in-house production processes. We can do that. We have that little engineering workshop, and we can have a look at pulling that together. So I don't think that there wasn't the channels to really hear what the women were saying. And I think that also women weren't necessarily trying to get their voices heard like they are now. There's a lot of push on Instagram about visibility, about body difference. And I think traditionally, perhaps, you know, in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, pre-Instagram, there just wasn't the platform for that, maybe. So women just thought, oh, it's just me and I'll just carry on. So maybe social media's had a lot to do with that, empowering the voices. But also there isn't that many women in product design careers. So it's still often a fairly male-dominated perspective. And actually, if you're looking at some of the problem solving that's gone on, where somebody is making a product to replace the breast, and that's what they think they're doing, then this is what fits the bill. It's just that that's not really what people are after right now. It's not, nothing's going to really replace the breast that you've lost if you've had surgery, but what you're after is something that can give you the shape and contour under your clothing, particularly for when you're doing active wear and active sports and swimming and that kind of thing. So I think just reframing the problem, focusing on co-design, and that greater visibility that's come through the social media age has had a really big impact on how and why this hasn't been addressed before and how we get to address it now.
I'm also wondering, a few years ago, there weren't that many startups also that were targeting, femtech startups, EA startups focusing on women's health, and it's coming now. And I think also it's a matter of women being more involved in distributing capital, women being more involved in building companies also. It's growing, it's slow, don't get me wrong, it's not great right now, but it's much better than it was a couple of years ago. And I feel that now it's we have kind of a big wave of founders, not necessarily female, but of founders that understand that women are a huge chunk of the population, and women health is different from men health, and so there's definitely markets here, and we see more and more startups tackling pain period, for example, or all these kind of things related to women health. And I don't know, I'm wondering, do you think that this ecosystem is definitely still underestimated, but I feel that there are some kind of solidarity between the startup in this ecosystem where, okay, we all know in this ecosystem that women's health is not yet super represented in terms of startups. So everyone is helping each other to push the word out and to make sure that, yes, we talk about it. Is it also what you're seeing?
I definitely feel that. That's definitely my experience, is that I feel like there's like an undercurrent of disruptive and ambitious women who are doing their best to act for the benefit of a community of women. And the amount of women that I meet, that I become friends with, that we find alignment between our companies that makes us all stronger. It is such an empowering kind of ecosystem of women that are coming forward as business leaders or as CEOs, and who are kind of doing it. And yeah, that's definitely the case. So we partnered with a company called Brarista, who we shared an Innovate UK bid with. So I wrote the Innovate UK bid, and we've got some money through the COVID Response Fund, and they're a tech firm focusing on bra fitting and bra sizing. And we teamed up together. And part of the reason that we did that is because we were both seeking finance at the same time. We were both in early stages. We were learning a lot from each other. I learned so much from working with Bella. She's an amazing lady. And so to do the joint project together and then to form that partnership, we're going to be picking it up again very soon to carry on with that technology development. But it was just, it was a no-brainer. And for both of us, it was a really, really wonderful and constructive partnership. And there is a lot of, I know it sounds a bit cliche because there's so many hashtags about it, about this women supporting women kind of thing, but women do. And you can just reach out to people and say, I've seen you've had Innovate UK funding. How did you do it? Or what can we do? We've applied and we haven't had it. Or, I've seen that you've just got investment. We found it really hard to get investment. How did you manage to do it? And those things, I think, women are really comfortable about sharing, like how they did it. I think that there's less competition and more of this vibe that we will all grow our businesses together. So
completely agree. Yeah, do you have any tips to find maybe some communities of femtech startups, or even for investors that are interested in this space? Do you have any tips on how to find these founders, maybe communities or stuff like that?
To be honest, I'm not really. I don't go out actively seeking that kind of thing. I just I'm on LinkedIn and people will get in touch with me there. and I get asked to talk at a few events, and I do a few presentations. I've done a couple recently for Innovate UK to talk about how, as a micro business, that we secured funding from Innovate UK, because that's a misconception, I guess, that people women who are running micro businesses where there's only you really, that you can't seek finance or get innovation funding. Well, that's not true. You absolutely can. We, like Boost did, and it was just me, and I wasn't even paid the first time we had funding. There were 0 employees in my company, and we still accessed funding. So I find it more happens kind of organically, really, for me. I am down in Cornwall, which means that we do feel like there is a disconnect. Often things are quite London centric, or they feel a bit London centric, but actually the pandemic has helped to open that up a bit, because people aren't so much more used to people just being on the other end of a Zoom call or something, that actually reaching out digitally has been really, really interesting in terms of growing my network and meeting more female founders who are doing really amazing things. So no specific community that I can say that I'm definitely a part of that one, but actually more about just a general awareness of what's going on and being able to easily connect with other people just by, using Zoom nowadays. It's great.
It really helps. You talked several times about funding. I think you did raise some external investment, and raising money for founders is hard. Raising money when you are both a hardware startup and a femtech startup must have been quite challenging. What was your experience on that? Was it really that hard? How did you even do it?
At the beginning, it was really hard. When we really needed the funding, before we could afford the IP, when we needed the funding to pay for the IP and all that kind of stuff, so really early days, it was impossible to get funding. We couldn't get any. I got Innovate UK funding for R&D work that we were keen to do, and we had to I sort of had to do other little competitions and things to get the funding. But we did pitch for investment, and we pitched to a room full of men in suits, and we walked in, and we just and there wasn't a product to show, not really, because it was that early on. We knew what we were making, but there wasn't anything to show, and the whole conversation was just so difficult. Like literally they sat there and then went, but this thing does the job, it provides the show. And we're like, no it doesn't, and they said, but yeah, it does. And what you don't, it doesn't even look like a boob. Like it doesn't look like a boob. So how can it be? And no, because you're missing the point. Like, so there was a really big disconnect at the beginning. Every time we tried to get people interested in the kind of funding and to see the potential, we used to have like it sounds really awful, but we used to just look at each other, because there were the amount of times somebody said to us, or if it's under their clothing or in their bra, why does it have to be pretty? Like, what does it matter if it's sparkly, or why does it matter if it's a pretty color? And you're like, what? What you're saying is, because you don't see it as the man who's viewing that woman's body, because you don't see it, it doesn't matter to you. But the most important person to us sees that product every single day. So she's got to want to wear it. She's got to feel confident when she's wearing it. We want her to pick it up out of her underwear drawer and smile as she puts it on, not pick up this and go, oh, another day of wearing this thing. It was that kind of sort of objection, that kind of comment we used to get all the time in the very early days. And I think it was really difficult. It was really difficult to get over that. But when we had the patents in, so how we actually raised the funding was one of the original funders that we pitched to that turned us down very early days, came back and said, oh, you've got your patents now and you're selling them, and it looks like it's doing really well, and you've just won this Women in Business Prize, and you're doing this, this and this. Would you like us to review your product again?
Usually when you need it the most, it's when it's the hardest. When you don't need it, like right now, that's you're in a better position, right?
Exactly. And then you're thinking, so then I said, no, it's all right, not really. And then they went, oh, but do you want to pick? And then I went, well, all right then. And then they made me an offer, and I said, oh, I don't know, I have to think about it. But then we got there in the end, and I accepted some funding from them, and actually I'm really happy. They are a really wonderful funder. Like all my I don't want to seem like I'm being negative, because they are wonderful and wonderfully supportive, and really critical point of our business growth, to be fair. So it is good that we come, but it is that early stage funding that was so difficult, because we just couldn't get people to really understand. It was majority, it might not just be because they're men, but I think it was just really difficult for people to see that vision of that paradigm shift we were aiming for. And for us to communicate that, I think people just thought, no, like it's not a thing. And now it's so obvious, like you said, like, why hasn't anybody done this before? It seems so obvious now, we're nearly 4 years down the line. Of course it was needing to be done, you know. But you know, 3.5, 4 years ago, people were just like, no, why are you doing that for? That's not a thing. So it doesn't matter.
With this funding, what's now the next big step? What should we, you know, keep an eye out for the year to come?
I employed myself. That's a good start.
That's great. That's already a fantastic step.
all this time I've been working full time and bits and pieces doing other jobs until sort of October last year, really. So all that time was just a balancing act of Boost as a side hustle and doing things when we could, and having subcontractors who we could really rely on. And that has to be a big shout out to Chris, who's working with me now as my business partner, really, and really driving things forward, because he was so patient and so good, and really worked really hard when we could afford to employ him to do things, which was a bit hit and miss at times. But now we can pay wages. I've got Chris now with me as me, and we've just hired a new designer called Marie. So we've now there's now 3 of us in the team, which is really exciting, and that means that we have more capacity to explore things. We're looking really seriously at our custom breast form offer and the ways that we can make that much more affordable and funky, and a really positive service for women, rather than it being very medicalized, as we talked about, but more like a really empowering thing. We are upping our production. We're doing pop-up shops. As you know, we're going to Scotland next week to do our first pop-up shop, which is really good. That's like 500 miles away from Cornwall, traveling from one end of the country to the other. And we're going to take our breast forms and do a pop-up shop. We're developing a network of independent lingerie shops who we're going to be in contact with at the end of April to really push that forward. And sales are going really well. People seem really interested, and the brand awareness is improving. It's just all kind of balancing. So hopefully you'll see much more of us, and people won't go, Boost who are they? What are they doing? People will know.
I hope so. Something that's quite interesting is your story is very much personal, right? It comes from a personal story. That's how you started the company. I'm wondering, usually founders, building a startup is complex, it's hard. And usually it's slightly easier or slightly more motivating when founders really get into the problem they really want to fix. So either for them or for someone else. But you know, you're focusing on building something to solve an existing problem. And for you, because it's so personal, I'm wondering how it has affected you as a founder, because you managed to work on it without being employed by the company, without being able to pay yourself for quite some time. Do you think that because you wanted to solve this for your mom, it actually motivated you and changed a bunch of things in your journey?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's exactly right. So I'm not a business person. I never did an MBA, obviously. You can tell by talking to me. I've never done project management training. I worked in arts and heritage. I worked in museums. That's what I did. And I was a teacher before that. And I was never really going to be an entrepreneur. That's not, and even now it still makes me go, I don't think I am. I don't think I am a CEO. I don't think I am an entrepreneur. And that's not like any type of imposter syndrome. That's just because I'm a bit like, oh yeah, I kind of did, but it was a bit of an accident. It's just because nobody else was doing it. Literally, we only did this because nobody else was doing it. I tried to get other people to do it. I tried to ring other companies and say, why aren't you making a thing that's like this? And they used to go, no, because you don't want that. Nobody wants that. I'm like, yeah, they do. Who have you spoken to? So I think that personal experience is really important, but also for me, because I have a disability, I have a long-term health condition, and it's called adult onset Still's disease, and it's really rare. I think about 2 in 2 million people, or 1 in a million people have it, or something. I don't know, I can't remember the stats, but it's quite rare. And it's where it's an autoimmune condition where my body attacks itself. It's under control and it's manageable now, but when I was younger, I was really, really poorly. And when I was 18, I'd worked my ass off doing my A levels, and I was really, really excited to be going to university. And I ended up with really severe mobility problems. And I was told that I would A, never be able to work, and B, would never be able to get to university because I wouldn't be well enough. And I think that when you're told things like that, and then your mum is stood behind the consultants at the time going, no, that's not true, like this behind their backs, you know, I think that was really important for me to have the faith that my parents had in me, that I would be able to do whatever I wanted to do, and that I should just get on with it and actually just do things within my limitations, build up my stamina, do what I needed to do. So then when I started to get better and I was doing my teacher training and I was in my early 20s, my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I think that really part of the motivation for me is just to work because I can, because I was always told I wouldn't be able to. And, you know, sod it, like every day is so much fun. And every day I'm running the company. Every day I feel like I'm doing something positive. Whenever we get some positive feedback from one of our customers, or somebody comes to us and says, I didn't know you were doing this thing and it's amazing, it's so cool, that makes me feel fabulous, because I don't need any more motivation than that, because like I'm actually working. I can do the thing. And I never, at one point I was always told, you're never going to be well enough, you're never going to be able to do anything. So
and you've done a lot of things. I mean, when you talk about your career, no one could have guessed that, because you've done many things. You've been a teacher, as you said, you work at museum, and now you have your own startup. So amazing.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting spread of things. But I think what's really good for me is I just like to learn new things. I get a bit bored, and I think, as you know, there's nothing, you can't be bored when you're running a business. There's always so much to do. So I really like that, the challenge of it. I like that's what gets me going. I really like the challenge of doing it and learning new things.
And I think it doesn't really go away as soon as you are working on challenging things. That's something that you can't really be bored again as soon as you just, it's kind of self-motivation, right, by learning new things. We have another question in the chat that is definitely lighter. It's about Cornwall. Do you think that does it has decent transport links as far as business supply chain, funding, networking? So do you think that you could have done that before COVID helped kind of decentralize business and everything?
I think we would have done it the same way that we were doing it. I think we would have, but it would have been harder. Because so I am very committed to Cornwall. I live in the same village that I grew up in as a child, and my son went to the same primary school that I went to, and some of the teachers were still there that used to teach me. So I am very much a homebody. I'm very dedicated to this part of Cornwall where I live. But I live at what most Cornish people would think of as the wrong end of Cornwall. So I'm right at the top end in North Cornwall. So I'm a bit further up. I'm closer to Devon. In fact, I can see Devon out of my window here. It's the other side of the river. So for me, the transport and accessibility isn't too much of an issue in terms of get to London and things like that. There's train stations fairly near that are on the main route. But there are places in Cornwall that are quite isolated, and people do forget that Cornwall is a really big county. To get from where I live, or from where we're based here, in this part of Cornwall to Penzance, for example, would still take me like 2.5 hours to get from my part of Cornwall to Penzance. But to get from here where I am now to Bristol would only take me 2 hours. So, I could travel through several counties and get to Bristol in the same time it takes me to get to Penzance. So there is an issue with infrastructure, and that's because of the motorways and things. Going up to Bristol would make that a quicker time. Going down to Cornwall, there's still issues with transport. So it can be an issue, but I think that actually you're right, working online, doing things remotely has helped to really avoid that. However, I think I would have done it anyway. I would have been based here because I'm committed to being here. I'm committed to creating jobs for Cornish people. I'm committed to doing training schemes as we grow our business. We want to empower our people who live and work in Cornwall to have wonderful and fulfilling careers and do wonderful things for UK manufacturing. And that's what we've always been dedicated to. And if it was just a bit harder because we didn't have the Zoom call kind of norm anymore, then we'd still do it. So yeah.
It's funny to see someone who is so dedicated to their own area today, where kind of the trend is to be a digital nomad and not really belong to a country and travel the world, which I'd love to do, but it's kind of complex, a bit too difficult. But yeah, no, it's great to see. I've never been there. Maybe I need to stop by because I'm not.
You need to come
away.
on holiday. Come down to our part of Cornwall. There's a lovely river. There's lots of kayaking. I mean, I can't imagine that there'd be anywhere else that I would want to be based. And when you have a family and you live very close to your family ties, you have ties to the history and the heritage of the place that you live in. I feel like I would never want to lose that. That's really important to me. And I spend a long time working in my community. I'm a volunteer. I've just raised my village some money towards their Jubilee celebration. So because I can do a lot of business finance kind of raising, and I'm all right with filling in the forms and things to raise money, then I use that to help the community as well wherever I can. So there's a lot that's going on here, and that I really enjoy those elements of my life and ways that I can use my skills that I've learned from running my business holistically for the benefit of my community and for other people. Then that's what I'm going to do, because it's just fun. It's brilliant to see things happen.
When you're building a startup, you are ready for everything and anything. Like, writing some founding grants or whatever, that's okay. You have to learn on the go while you're building your company, because you're never prepared for everything, and you definitely don't know about everything you're doing. So you have to learn on the go and just to try out. And I feel that it's a very good preparation for anything in life. Any forms, any stuff you may have to fill, any jobs you may have to do after would be maybe a bit easier, right?
Yeah, I can tell you that I actually had the opportunity to build my own house about 7 years ago. So I inherited a small plot of land, and I had the opportunity to build my own house. And building my own house is the only thing I've done that's come close to kind of building a company, because the amount of effort, the amount of money, the amount of hoops you have to jump through, the amount of stress sometimes that it was. And when I survived doing the house, I was literally like, what's next then? And I think that's when I started to really, that's when the seed of the idea for the company started to come up, and I really thought, I could do this. we could do this. We could build a team that could deliver this thing. And I think that actually the achievement of finally getting through the house build was probably the catalyst to make me think, yeah, you know, I can do things. I can create something that wasn't there before, and I'd never really had that opportunity before to do that. And I'm really thankful that I've had these opportunities that I've been able to seize and to have a go at.
It's about seizing them, right? Not about opportunities coming up, because there's opportunities everywhere. It's about saying, okay, let's do that.
Let's do it, yeah, and let's do it. So the house build was a little bit tricky because there's so much to consider, and actually lots of advice I was given was just don't do it, or don't do it yet, or it's not ready, you know, it's not the right time. And I thought, no, I'm gonna have a go. And really the same with building the company. It was, if you wait for the right time for these things, there's never a right time. You've just got to sometimes just get on with it. And I feel like that's what we've done. And yeah, hopefully it's going to pay off. It's starting to pay off.
On the chat, we have a question: which is harder, building a house or a business?
I knew I shouldn't have mentioned that. Really, that's a terrible question. I don't know. They were very. Do you know what? They were very similar. I think I found building the house more stressful because really building the business was a bit more de-risked, because I kept hold of, yes, it's hard. I mean, I was working all hours, but it was only really me that suffered from that. But building the house, of course, my son and my partner wasn't, he works really long hours, so he wasn't really able to be very hands-on. And I was running a department at a local college at the time. So, but I was kind of managing the process for building the house. So I think probably building the house was, and I was a lot younger and a different person, but I do think I took the resilience and the ability to handle stress and to solve problems that I got from building the house, and I put that into the company. And so I think that I have not found it less stressful to build the company, but I have been able to manage it and own it a bit more than perhaps when I did the house. It was a bit more of a shock to the system because I hadn't had stress like that before.
Good preparation. So Yinch asks, what is next? Will you be scaling up the Boost product and all other things?
We are looking at launching 2 new products this year, which are related to the Boost breast form, but slightly different variations, and we're working on those at the moment. And yes, we're looking at scaling up, sort of hoping to double our production, really, if people want that. So we are really conscious that we don't want to overproduce. We don't want to bring more stuff into the world than we need to. So we just have to manage that really carefully. So we're ensuring that we get the demand and also are able to supply that demand. But yeah, scaling up is definitely on the agenda. Exporting, particularly to the US market, we get loads of people in the US really keen on our products. So finding a US partner would be amazing. We really could do with a US partner and start to explore that. Yeah, so that's really the plan for now. We really want to we need to get these kind of products available to any woman who needs them or wants them. I think that's the point. Just have the option to have something else, and it might not be for you, and it might not work for you, but just have another option.
That's key, and that's the perfect motivation and justification just for you to be building Boost. And I can't wait to hear more about these new products because it's cryptic and I love it.
Yeah, sorry, I can't say very much
I
about it.
I completely understand, and that's great. I mean, it's a teasing, right? That's the point. You have to tease people about what's coming. So love it. We are reaching the end of this AMA. Is there anything that you'd like to mention? Any tips for founders, any resources maybe you want me to add at the bottom of the video and the video description when I make it live? Anything else you want to say before we wrap up? And same on the chat, if you have any last question, short question, that's the last time.
Short question.
Last call.
Yeah. I don't really have that much else to add. I just think I would just encourage anybody who's thinking about starting up a company or is in that startup journey just to keep with it, keep going, and also to recognize that whatever you're doing is up to you. You're the agent behind it, you're driving it. So I think that was one of the things that I learned quite early on, is when if it felt a bit out of control, or you felt it was going a bit fast, or it was a bit stressful or whatever, in fact, when you're building a startup company, you can be in control of that narrative and how it's developing. And don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to slow it down or speed it up, or do what you need to do. And I think that's part of what I've really enjoyed, is that freedom to grow things and develop them in the way that has been really exciting and comfortable for me. So it's been a fabulous journey so far. Hopefully we'll carry on now into the next phase and get going.
I wish you all the best for that. Thank you so much, Samantha, for being here today, for sharing your journey with us. I really love your journey so far, and I want to keep in touch and hear more about it. And thank you everyone on the chat, everyone watching here, even if you haven't spoken on the chat, for joining us for this 50th AMA already. So the video of today will be on my YouTube channel on Monday afternoon or so. That's where you can find all our previous AMAs. Another huge thanks to Yinch and Roy, who are monthly supporters on my Buy Me a Coffee. And actually, last AMA, I kind of teased about building or using another platform for booking one-to-one chats and sessions. I've actually done it. I've created a profile on SuperPeer, so if anyone wants to chit chat about their own project, you can always reach out to me there. Or whether that's for you or not, you can always join the Discord or reach out on Twitter anytime. So the next AMA will be next month. I actually need to start looking for my next guest. So I'm always happy when you send suggestions. And actually, Samantha was suggested by by Yinch on Discord. So thanks a lot for that. If you think about founders that you think have fantastic stories to share, or you want me to ask them questions, please feel free to recommend them. And of course, in the meantime, there will be a couple of streams on Saturdays as we do between the AMAs. Enjoy the weekend, everyone, and we speak soon. Bye. Thanks a lot.